Dear friends of the Goa Jesuit province, I've been asked to share my own experiences and reflections on Pope Francis. I recall very well March 2013, that evening when he was elected and proclaimed the new Pope of the Catholic Church. I happened to be working at that time in Rome at the Jesuit headquarters, which is not far from the Vatican. And so when news came in that a new Pope had been elected and white smoke was released at the Vatican, promptly we left our desks at the Jesuit headquarters and literally ran towards the Vatican. It is a distance of about 5 minutes fast walk. And we went to St. Peter's Square, which was by then already packed with pilgrims, and stood patiently waiting for the new Pope to be introduced to the people gathered there. After a few minutes, the new Pope was ushered in from the balcony of St. Peter's, and he was introduced to the people as Pope Francis. And he stood there, and after the Cardinal finished the introduction, Pope Francis started by saying, "Good evening" to the people, Buona sera, the Italian for good evening. People were simply electrified that he spoke their language, that he spoke simply, and that he had also a warm message to give and share with the people. It was a very touching moment for me personally, because I have never seen such a scene of the election and proclamation of a new Pope. Since I have to be brief in this little talk, I will highlight 3 points about Pope Francis that struck me then and that strike me today as we lay his body to rest. First and foremost, it came across that he was a Pope of hope. Immediately it came across that way because he spoke about a future for the Church in which all could participate, particularly those people gathered that evening at St. Peter's Square. All felt welcome, all felt they were part of this church. So hope was his great message. And hope, I think, came into his message because this was part of his earlier life in Buenos Aires as Cardinal of the city, and also in his pastoral work with the people of Latin America in general. This book that has just come out, which is his autobiography, is also named Hope, as we see. It's a beautiful compilation of many stories about Pope Francis. He himself shares them with the writer of the book, and it comes out in the form of an autobiography. Very touching stories about his family, about his early training as a Jesuit scholastic and later as a Jesuit provincial and in the ministry. Also his later years as bishop and then archbishop and finally as Cardinal of Buenos Aires. The message of hope is powerful because he brought this message into the papacy, and that is important at that time of transition. We must remember that Pope Benedict XVI had just resigned, which was itself a very historic event, and so the coming onto the world stage of Pope Francis was a sign of great hope. He was the first Pope from Latin America. He was the first Pope also who was not European and also not connected directly with the Vatican. So the hope that he raised was immense that evening in March 2013. The other aspect that I want to touch upon about Pope Francis was that he was a lover of the poor. That also came across that evening because he said he chose the name of Francis of Assisi. And as we all know, Francis of Assisi is the very symbol of poverty in the Catholic Church. Francis of Assisi was a man who dedicated his whole life to the poor, not only that he served them, but that he himself lived as a poor man, as a poor monk. And so Pope Francis was always inspired by this Franciscan figure. And so he took on this Franciscan name. So it was also touching for us Jesuits that time in Rome, that a Jesuit would choose the name of a Franciscan saint. That itself showed his openness to various religious cultures around us, and also his sense of great love for the poor. And the third and final aspect I want to touch upon about Pope Francis is that he came in as a shepherd, as a pastor. You may remember that a few months later, he said to the priests of Rome, he said to them, "You should smell the smell of your sheep. Then the people will know that you're a true shepherd, close to your sheep." And this is what he practiced in his own life. He was a great shepherd. His first Palm Sunday in Rome as Pope was when he went, not Palm Sunday, but the first Sunday in Lent, when he went down to wash the feet of prisoners of the prison not very far from the city of Rome. He washed their feet, men and women, and they were very touched. Many of them were in jail for several years, but that did not deter Pope Francis from reaching out to them. He felt as since he was the Bishop of Rome, he was the shepherd of the Roman Church there. And that is why this gesture has never been forgotten by the local people. The people of Rome also grew to love him as their own shepherd. Rarely, perhaps, has a pope been so much in touch with the local people of Rome. He would visit their parishes, he would visit their churches, he would reach out to the people, he would give them messages. Very touching and very different, perhaps, from some of his predecessors. So these three aspects, perhaps, are important, I think, in the life of Pope Francis. One could say many more things, but it's good to focus on hope, on his love for the poor, and of his faithfulness as shepherd of God's people. I hope these messages will also inspire you as you listen to my sharing and to what I also went through from the day of his election to today, the day of his death and burial in the city of Rome. Thank you very much.